I'm Nirupama Subramanian, and you're watching South Asia Matters. My guest today is Krishnendhu Bose, the maker of several award-winning films and documentaries. I'm not going to list them all here because they're too numerous and our time is very short, but it will suffice to say that his 2017 documentary, The Tiger Who Crossed the Line, which premiered on Discovery Channel, got the National Award for the Best Documentary that year. The reason he's here with me today is because of another documentary that he's made, very different from his previous work. And this is called The Bay of Blood. And it is about the 9 months from March to December 1971, in which Bangladesh was liberated from Pakistan and became an independent country, of course, with Indian assistance. It's a one-hour film. It's very gripping, and it documents in great detail the horrific Operation Searchlight launched by the Pakistan Army in March 1971, which was literally a war, if you think about it, against its own citizens. And how it documents also how the people from Bangladesh then fled to India, the exodus to India, the setting up of Mukti Bahini, and finally the India-Pakistan war that that led to the liberation. Krishnendhu, welcome to South Asia Matters. Bay of Blood is a very graphic film, and you've worked mainly with archival footage, a lot of interviews. We'll come to that later. My first question to you really is, what made you make this film? Because you have not delved into these kind of subjects before. You've made documentaries about another very important topic, which is in the environment, wildlife conservation, climate change. And so I'm just curious to understand what made you decide to make Bay of Blood, and how is it different from the crop of documentaries that's already in existence? I think Films Division itself has made at least 2, if not 3, and a lot of TV channels have been showing their own documentaries. So tell me a bit about all this.
Okay, to begin with, thank you very much, Nirupama, to invite me on this platform. I think it's an important platform, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about the film. It's a brand new film. It's like a month old. And I'm really hoping that more and more people will see it and know more about it. So this is a great opportunity. Well, you asked me, why did I make this film? In 2019, Madhurima, my partner in crime, my wife, as well as she's the director of our company, production company, and the producer of this film, she was pushing me to do something, make a film, perhaps, because 50 years of Bangladesh independence was coming around the corner, 1971, to 2021. So 2019, I did sort of gingerly went to Dhaka to do a little bit of research and meet people. I'd read a couple of books, couple of seminal books on like Salil Tripathi's book and Srinath Raghavan's book, Gary Bass's Forgotten Genocide. So armed with all that, I just landed in Dhaka and spent 10 days with another person, who's partnered in this film, a local documentary filmmaker, Pintu. So both of us went around and met people, but I wasn't prepared for what I heard. And the people, a lot of them were eyewitness, a lot of them were rape survivors, sexual assault survivors. And a lot of them, some of them were journalists. They were young, 20-something journalists, and they gave me a blow-by-blow account of what happened during 1971. Some of them were also Mukti Jodhas, which is freedom fighters. And all of them were like, in their 20s.
At that time.
So at that time, yeah. I mean, now they were in their 70s or late 60s. And it like gave me goosebumps. I thought this story has to be told. And then I came back and I made a quick, I cut it into a quick kind of a promo. a trailer, if you wish. Then I went around the world and trying to attract funding, try to see if I can get funding, and I met sort of the whole cross section of big television channels and people who are in media, have experienced people, and to my utter shock, that none of them knew anything about this, nothing at all.
Is it?
And yeah, I mean, nothing at all. I was like really amazed that 3 million people had been killed in 9 months. And this was like 1971. This is 50 years ago. It's not like 100 years ago. It's not Armenian genocide. This is even more recent than Holocaust. I mean, and I was feeling ashamed that it's something which has happened in our neighborhood. Nobody knows about it, and that made me kind of determined that to tell this story to the world.
So
And then I started my journey into making this film. Yeah.
So you just said 3 million people were killed. One of the unsettled questions about the 1971, that whole year, starting with March 1971, when Operation Searchlight was launched by the Pakistan Army up to December, is how many people were killed. And also this whole issue of genocide, which you go into very deeply in the film, and so there are conflicting views on how many people were killed exactly. So the Bangladesh government says 3 million. In Bangladesh, that is the accepted figure, 3 million. And the Hamudur Rahman commission, which was set up to go into what happened in Pakistan, that commission said, I think 26,000 people died. So, how did you deal with this question? I know I've seen the film, and I know that you consulted some genocide experts. So how did you arrive at this conclusion of 3 million yourself? And what is the general sense that comes out in your film about the issue of genocide?
Well, to begin with, I think for me personally, and a lot of other people, numbers don't matter. Genocide is described or defined by the intent to kill. And there was a massive intent. So it was always legally also, it talks about the intent of the perpetrators. So whether it's 1 or 100 million, it really doesn't matter. To a certain extent, it doesn't matter. And numbers are, yeah, Bangladesh official figures are 3 million. I've come across calculations which go into calculation done by not local people, by foreign experts. It has gone into something like 1.5 million, 1.25, 1.5 million people. So whether it's 3 million, whether it's 1.5, there's 2 million, I think that is something the film doesn't go into at all. There is Daniel Feuerstein. He's an academic from Buenos Aires, and he's an expert on genocide. In the film, he says 3 million victims. So in Bangladesh also, there is this one school of thought or argument is that when we talk about 3 million, it also probably includes the people who died in the camps in India, died while the migration was taking place. Why wouldn't they be the victims or the people who have been killed by genocide? They were fleeing the perpetrators of East Pakistan, and many died on the way, many died in the Indian camps. So they probably have a larger view of the numbers, and nobody has really counted the numbers. Like they don't have a very specific numeration of the people killed, which is also very difficult after 50 years. If you do, and it was spread. It was not in concentration camps. It was not in Cambodia or Rwanda or Bosnia. There were pockets of killings. Here, the entire nation was a killing field. So it will be very difficult. However, there are people like Muntasir Mamun. He is an historian, and he is the curator of genocide of the Genocide Museum in Khulna, they are doing an entire exercise of exhuming the bodies, of finding these, these graveyards, the mass graves, and where the killing would have Bodho Bhumi, which they call in Bengali. So there is a process of enumeration which is going on. But whatever the number is, I don't think we should be distracted by the debate on numbers. I think what happened in that country is horrific, and I think we should go into it and understand why and how did it happen. I think that is what the film is all about.
You have some very detailed eyewitness accounts. I mean, of not just eyewitness, but people who had survived the ordeal. There are rape victims. There are people who saw their families being killed. I recall this person who was in the Dhaka University. His family was running the canteen at Dhaka University, and the soldiers came in, and he remembers how his mother was shot, and how her chain kind of shattered into so many pieces. I mean, he had such a vivid recollection. It was almost as if it was all happening in front of your eyes. So how difficult was it to find these, after all these years, to find these people, survivors? What were the challenges you faced in this respect, in just putting together these accounts? Were they easily available? Did they have to be persuaded to be part of the film, or were they happy to share their accounts?
Yeah, it was an amazing experience making this film and unearthing these people and getting them talk on camera about their experience. Must be very harrowing for them to relive in a way, in some ways, to do this. But I must say this, it was a very exhilarating experience for me. I can't say a very joyful experience, but it's very exhilarating because as the word spread that here's a filmmaker who's not a Bangladeshi, he's come from India, a foreigner, who's trying to put together this story of 50 years ago, what happened in this country. People just came in and they said that we know people, so and so, and through that kind of, you're a journalist, you understand, it's like beyond a point, it becomes geometric progression, that 1 to 2 to 2 to 20, and of course, then I was put in a situation where I had to wean people. I had to check them, how much of a story they have, and whether they come out strongly in front of the camera. So unfortunately, I couldn't include a lot of people who had very strong narratives, memories of what happened. I wouldn't say it was easy, but the person you're talking about, who saw his family, parents, and brother and sister-in-law butchered in front of him when he was, I think, 8 years old, Odhir De, he's never been interviewed before on camera. And I saw a little write-up on him somewhere in a volume of all the eyewitness accounts and things like that, and in Bengali. So I don't read Bengali, my wife does. So she read it out, and then I researched about this person, and finally I figured out that he was in New York. And so I just wanted to tell you this very short story, to illustrate what I'm saying, that people really came on board very quickly, and they somewhere I realized that they were dying to tell this story. They were really very eager to tell this story. So he was in New York, and I was working on our own funds, personal funds. So we are very tight on budget. But still, I was filming in Washington, because most of the people in America who I was interviewing were in Washington. So I asked him that can you please come over from New York for this interview? So he said, yeah, I will come. And he is, he's done reasonably well in life, but I would still offer him the fare to come and to stay a night in DC. So he came with his daughter, I remember, and then he spent the day with me interviewing and things like that. In the end, I was seeing him off I just said, how much is it? And he looked at me and he said, why are you asking this question? If you have done so much for my country, for my family, can't I do this little bit for my country? And I had tears in my eyes and he had tears in his eyes. And I said, sorry, I asked you this. So that is the kind of, I think, I felt involvement with this film, with this experience. It's quite an experience for me, really.
So you're Bengali yourself, as you just mentioned, and from India. And did that influence the way you framed this, the story, your understanding? How did that play a part in the way the film has been presented?
I think the only thing, the two things, I think, I was like 10 years old when this happened, and I have some not very clear memory, but some little foggy memory of watching a lot of these people who had migrated to Calcutta, on the streets of Calcutta, and in camps and things like that. And I remember there was this eye infection, which started around that time. And it was called Joy Bangla. So that is one of the memories I have. So I knew about this, and there was my family, my wife's family, Madhurima's family. They come from East Bengal, and there's so much in our friends, in our families, who come from East Bengal. So Bangladesh, East Pakistan, East Bengal is not something alien to us, to me, being a Bengali. So that somewhere sort of, I think egged me on to tell the story a little bit. And the other thing, of course, that I'm a Bengali, so the language wasn't a problem. I could understand each intonation, each emotion which was being articulated to me. I not being, if I was foreigner not understanding the language, then I had to go through a mediator. So that probably would have diluted a little bit. So that was, and people probably opened up to me, being a Bengali, I suppose.
Yeah.
But half the people in the film are not Bengalis, are not Bangladeshis. So,
right.
I mean, to a larger extent, didn't matter really much.
So how do people actually remember the Indian intervention? I ask this question also because, a lot of the times in contemporary times, relations between India and Bangladesh have been sort of up and down. And there has been a view in India that, Bangladesh has not been sufficiently, I don't know if this is the word to use, has not been sufficiently grateful, if I may use that word, for what India did at that time. What was your experience in this regard?
So, a couple of things here. I think one thing is a generational thing, the generation who had seen or been part of the 71 9 months, they have a different view of India. And then there is a younger generation of today. They haven't seen that. So they have a more, a different view of India. India, perhaps for them is kind of a little big brother. And, so that kind of thinking they hold. But I came across so many people, almost everybody from that generation of 71, they would openly say that without India, we wouldn't have been independent. It's clearly that India was a part who were our, they were our friends, and they gave us shelter. 10 million people. I mean, there is no discussion or debate or arguments over this. There cannot be sides. When a country holds 10 million people in 71, when India was not of India of 2023, and we were really economically, we are still struggling, and we supported 10 million people, not for a week or 10 days or a few months, for 9 months. So I think they think of India with a lot of warmth. However, there is this 2 or 3 particular things, specific things, which people had warned me as an Indian filmmaker. You got to be careful while making your film. That Indian narrative of 71 is Indo-Pakistan war. That is what they call it, that is what they remember it by. And there is not much of the genocide which they remember.
Right.
That's one Indian narrative you got to be very careful of. Secondly, India, sometimes, some group of people, a history of India, historically they say that we brought independence to Bangladesh. Without us, it wouldn't have been possible. So they take more credit than should be given. So the other two people, they were advising me, they were kind of educating me that these are two pitfalls. And you may like to go into it and understand for yourself and see what you want to make of it. So I was mindful of these two things. However, the people I interviewed from the army, or people who actually knew what was happening, and they were there, right there, they clearly told me without Mukti Bahini, the freedom fighters working on the Pakistani army for 9 months, we wouldn't have been able to go in and finish the war in 13 days. It was impossible. So in the film also, I make it very clear that it was Mukti Bahini and the Indian Armed Forces and the people of India and the people of Bangladesh. There is Colonel Sajjad Zahir. Yeah. He was one of the main people, fighting. He was a deserter from the army, Pakistan army, and so he says in the film that it was the Indian army, the Mukti Bahini, the people of Pakistan, people of India, and people of Bangladesh, all put together, they brought independence. So, and in India also, Indian is the brigadier R.P. Singh, who's in the film. I interviewed him, and he also says that if Mukti Bahini was taking us through the swamps, through the rivers, through the village roads, and we didn't know a damn thing. There were no Google Maps. So we didn't know this terrain. We have never fought on this terrain. So how could anyone say that it was only the Indian army who brought freedom to this country? So I think the film addresses this, and in a very congenial way it was dealt with. And I think that's a fact which I put together in the film.
So, to extend this question, in Pakistan, there is a view that, it was cunning Hindus that actually, conspired to split their country. And it was because of them that, all this discontent was sown in Bangladesh, and they worked hand in glove with the Indian government, and that is how the country got split. Did you hear this narrative? I didn't see it particularly in the film, but did you get this narrative when you were researching, and how strongly was it there? I mean, did you hear it from anybody in Bangladesh?
No, not at all. Not at all from Bangladesh. But the eyewitness account of the night of 25th, 26th, 27th March 1971 threw up a lot of interesting things. And I think one has to understand the history, because as anyone who knows Bangladesh genocide will say that genocide didn't start on 25th March 1971. It started in 1948 when Jinnah came to Dhaka and he said Urdu is going to be the language, the national language of Pakistan, and not Bengali. So I think we need to understand the cultural aspect of this whole war, this whole genocide. The Pakistanis, being Punjabis and being, what they were culturally, they never could understand that even though they were Muslims, they worshipped Islam, they practiced Islam, they were Bengalis. I think this is something which we need to understand if you want to understand the genocide of Bangladesh. They were Bengalis, and when you are Bengali, then you are syncretic, you are secular, and your culture, there's one religion, you're Bengali Muslims, but the Bengaliness overlaps what Bengalis in India would do, who are Hindu. So Hindu and Muslim, Islam and Hinduism, it somewhere merges through this whole space of culture, Bengaliness, that the Pakistanis would never understand. And they would call the Muslim Bengalis of East Pakistan fake Muslims. They would call them Hindus. And
Right.
from Hindu came India. They would always associate Hindus with India. So they would, what you're saying, it was a narrative which was true in Pakistan. They felt that India was influencing the Bengalis of East Pakistan, and thereby they were dissenting and all this protest, and finally they wanted their own country. They want to rule autonomy, and it was driven by India, but it was not India. It was the
Yeah.
Bengaliness and the Hindus. And just to finish, on the night of the 25th March, they were looking for Malawans. Malawan was a slang for Hindus.
Mm-hmm.
So Pakistani army people were calling out and asking people, Malwan dekha hai? Malwan kahan rehta hai? Malwan upar rehta hai. They were pointing to Hindus. And so Bengalis, Hindus, Islam, Hinduism, India, and East Pakistan, they were all kind of merged together through this lens of culture.
Right. I saw that there were not many Pakistanis interviewed in this film. There was only Shuja Nawaz, who's an authoritative voice on the Pakistan Army, and so was that a deliberate decision not to interview too many Pakistanis in this film?
No, no, not at all. In fact, I would have loved to have more Pakistanis who would support this and bring forward the Pakistani narrative, the government narrative, and the people's narrative. I'd interviewed some people. I chatted with them on Zoom. Some were not available in the dates we had, and I couldn't have gone to Pakistan. That would have been the ideal thing,
That's
to just to
difficult to
go
do
there
now.
with the crew. And yeah, it's very difficult. And so I, unfortunately, I wanted to have more people, but I couldn't because of the politics between the two countries.
Right. So, Krishnendhu, this is going to be one last question. We have to wrap up. But before you go, I'd just like to ask you about, the timing of this film. It's not widely released yet. It's come out, and I think you've had some screenings in Bangladesh, where it has been well received, I'm told. But it's come out at a time that the country is going into an election cycle. And in fact, that election cycle has already begun. There's going to be elections in January 2024, if I'm not mistaken. And there is, from what we see in the media, there seems to be an anti-incumbent mood among the people. We saw that Sheikh Hasina was here in Delhi for the G20 summit. She took a selfie with President Biden, and that became a big image booster for her. I mean, it was used widely. Are you worried that your film could be also used in the same way, because Sheikh Hasina's family was, they were involved. Her father's Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was the father of Bangladesh, as it were. And do you have concerns about that?
Well,
that it's a propaganda film in the
I don't know. I don't know how it will be used, or I don't know much about or rather, I don't want to get into the election space of Bangladesh. But I must say this couple of things, sticking by what I've done in the film. The film, for me, talks about the fragility of democracy. It talks about how democracies have to be nurtured and protected like a child, and how vulnerable it is that after winning the independence in December 1971, in 1975, within 3 years, the father of the nation who brought independence was assassinated by his own people. So, and after that, the country plunged into like 15, 16 years of chaos. So democracy has to be really, really protected, and it's very difficult. You cannot ever take a chance or take it for granted. Even a democracy like US, 400-year-old, odd-year-old democracy can be assaulted on the Capitol Hill. So the other thing the film also very subtly throws up is who are the Jamaat-e Islami, people. They are the people who made Rajakars,
Yeah.
who are Al-Shams, Al-Badr, the SS of Germany. They are these people, and they have actually they were part of the Jamaat-e-Islami party, and
And they
you
play,
have to be careful.
yeah.
They played a huge role. They played a role in the assassination of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and they are also today they are active. So uh, I mean, that is the theater of January 2024. So you have to be careful that, and that's not just for Bangladesh, that's for worldwide. Globally, democracies are under pressure. And the film talks about this, and specifically about Pakistan, about Bangladesh. And I think these are the things we need to be mindful of in the coming elections.
So, Krishnendhu, I think we've run out of time. Thanks a lot for agreeing to be on this show. Thank you for your time, and all the best with your film. And we hope to
Thank
see
you so much.
it in widely released soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Nirupama. Bye. Bye. Take care.